I'm Seth.
Hi there. I'm Mike. And it's nice to meet you, especially since we now
hear me okay? Hi, welcome. This is so wonderful to see so many people here. My name is Ellie Hayland. I'm the president of HumanistsMN, and this is the first community gathering of our program year. We do have activities in the summer, but this is kind of when we start ramping up again with our programming, so this is really wonderful to see all of you here. We are very glad to welcome any new visitors. I think I see a lot of new people here, but of course we're always happy to see our members and friends as well. So I just wanted to take a little moment, if you're kind of new to our organization or humanism in general, I just kind of want to give you a little rundown of what we're about. So HumanistsMN is a secular community for ethical living. We are committed to the well-being of all and the sustainability of the planet. We seek to champion secular, moral, civic, and political leadership and normalize non-belief. If you want to know more about us, you can go to our website, humanistsmn.org, or sign up for our newsletter in the lobby. And we also encourage you to follow us on social media. We have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and we found that to be a really great way to engage with the public and spread the word of humanism a little bit more. If you're looking for a community of naturally curious, compassionate, and rational people who gather for friendship, personal growth, doing good together, and normalizing the non-religious, naturalist worldview, please consider joining us. We are an all-volunteer organization, and we depend on the goodwill, service, and generosity of our members and friends. So whether you're new or you've been participating in events for a little while, but you haven't kind of taken the plunge to become a dues-paying member, this is a great time to do that. We invite you to help us magnify the inclusive message humanism by becoming a member today. And you can find more information on that in the lobby as well. Also at the table in the lobby, you can sign up to be a volunteer, whether that's helping put on these community gatherings or joining one of our many committees. We have a marketing committee, social action, media and tech, and programming. So a lot of different ways to get involved. Just a few announcements about some upcoming events that we have this fall. On September 24th, we are participating in the National Alliance on Mental Illness's 5K walk, and that's at Minnehaha Park. We're going to have a members-only MIA tour and book discussion on the Lincoln Highway. That's also on the 24th. And we always have a highway cleanup in the fall, and that's on October 1st. So you can head to our meetup page where you can find out more and RSVP. So on that note, please join me in welcoming up Audrey Kingstrom from our programming committee to announce next month's community gathering topic, as well as to introduce today's speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. So before I introduce today's speaker, I want to let you know that next month our guest is Timothy Johnson. He is Professor of Political Science and Law at the University of Minnesota. He's a nationally recognized expert on the Supreme Court, having written several books, and he regularly provides commentary for a variety of local and national news outlets. He's going to be giving us his appraisal of the Roberts Court. So you may join us again next month right here in this space on October 15th. But today, we are very delighted to have with us Seth Andrews, creator, producer, and host of the Thinking Atheist, one of the most popular online atheist communities in the world. Originally the product of Christian fundamentalism, Oklahoma style, I understand, which is where Seth still lives. He is currently a broadcaster, storyteller, author, public speaker, activist, and advocate for pursuing truth through reason and evidence and embracing humanist values, which is the focus of his talk today. Seth has authored 4 books: Deconverted, A Journey from Religion to Reason; Sacred Cows, a lighthearted look at belief and tradition around the world; his 3rd, Confessions of a Former Fox News Christian; and his latest book, Christianity Made Me Talk Like an Idiot.
I like that one.
We'll have some time for Q&A after Seth's presentation, as well as our drawing for a book. If you're attending, and if you did not sign and get your name in the drawing for a free book of Seth's, you could hustle out to the lobby and do that now, because we're going to have a book drawing after his presentation, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. After that, please stay for our reception and some socializing, and you can check out Seth's books, which will be for sale if you haven't seen that already. So now, without further ado, please join me in giving a warm Minnesota welcome to Seth Andrews.
Weird meeting of atheist, humanist, and secular people in church. Hashtag irony. It's funny, I first came out as an atheist in 2011. I was still really going through it, even though I called myself an atheist. I came out of evangelical, conservative, fundamental, Protestant, Jesus-town Christianity. And my employer was a believer, and I was worried. Most of our clients were churches, and I was, what's going to happen to my family, and what's going on, what will my life look like. And so I did the first 2 years hosting the site, and 1 year of hosting the podcast anonymously. People only knew my voice and my first name because I was terrified of what might happen. And was at a Unitarian Universalist church. And I received the kind of love and acceptance and goodness and humanity that I had never forgotten and I will never forget. So there have been a few people who are like, you're doing a presentation at a UU church. And I'm like, you're damn right. You're damn right. I'm honored to be part of today, and I'm honored that so many of you came. Can I get just a little more on the microphone, my friends? Just to make sure that I don't want to feedback, but I want to make sure I'm not shouting at everybody. Can you hear me okay in the back? Yeah. So, no obligation to do this, but I thought it would be fun if we all took whoever wants to be in, we took a photograph, like a group photo. Some people I know were on the down low. You know, I've seen this. We told our parents we were going to a marriage conference or something. I've seen a lot of that, so I'm not trying to out anybody, but if I put like Mike or somebody at the back, would you all be good at like standing up, and then if you don't want to be in it, you can just hide behind somebody's head and we'll just do a big group photo. Would that be okay? Let's do it real fast. Everybody stand up. Mike, can I get you to stand right at the back? Everyone lean in. Try to look moral and again, you can hide behind a head if you'd rather not. I want to make sure I respect your personal boundaries and privacy. Just say when, my friend.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Got it.
Thank you. Now I've got the goods on all of you. How much more can you give me on? Just a little more onto this sucker? Hello, check 1, 2, 1, 2, check, check, check. Q107 FM, a beautiful day in Minneapolis. I cannot a radio, it's a reflex, it just happens automatically. I struggled with the presentation I'm giving today. I was nervous about it. I think more than a lot of the speeches that I've done, I've spoken a lot. This one scared me. And I gave it for the first time in Dallas, Texas, and I went back to the hotel that night, and I rewrote a bunch of it, and I deleted slides, and I added, and I tweaked, and I gave it in San Antonio, and I tweaked, and I gave it in Houston, and I tweaked, and I've just been, it's something it's very close to my heart, but I'm always worried about being misunderstood or misconstrued or misrepresented. Today's really about a personal journey that I'm taking. It's not about you. I'm not telling you how to think, how to live, how to behave, what your activism or activities or mind or heart look like. This is not a referendum on you. I just want to tell you what I've been going through. And I want to do it because I have a suspicion that I'm not the only one who's been going through it. I have a suspicion that many of you are in the exact same place that we shall see. Are you ready? In my home city of Tulsa, Oklahoma, there's a ramp to the Creek Turnpike, not that you care where it is, but it's just off 91st and Riverside, 2 lanes. It's a real place, just to make sure I'm not making this up. This is a Google overhead shot and it's a toll booth entrance, okay? And my wife and I are always in this part of town. It's 20 minutes away, but we always go here. We go here for 2 reasons. First of all, our sushi place is there. We love the sushi at Sushi Hana. But also, there's a pedicure place. Pedicures. Like, I used to just like, Natalie, I don't get a pedicure. Like, I used to be that guy, and she talked me into going, pedicures, they're the greatest thing in the universe. They do that sugar scrub on your feet, and they massage your toes, and it's just like, oh my God. So now I'm always like, honey, let's go get pedicure. I'm terrible, I'm totally addicted. So that's one of the other reasons that we go here, right? Busy street, this is a busy, busy street. There are 2 lanes. The left side is fast track for people who have a pike pass. I don't know, would you guys call it pike pass or toll tag or something like that in Minnesota? Do you have like an automatic billing thing where you can go through at high speed? We've got a little like sensor that is read by a reader. We blow through. You don't have to stop. You don't have to put the change in unless you don't have a pike pass. And on the right, you have to stop and dig through and take your change and throw in your quarters, right? Pike pass on the left, coins on the right. There's a guy in front of me. Now I'm getting ready to get on. There's a guy in a car in front of me, and he chose the fast track. He chose pike pass, but then he stopped right under the frame of the toll booth entrance, totally blocking the rest of us. It was obvious he'd screwed up. It was obvious he'd made a big mistake. He did not have a pike pass, and he was in the pike pass lane. He was going to get fined if he blew through there. So as I sat there at a stop, and the car is starting to line up behind me, he jumps out of the car. And he runs around to the change machine and he throws in whatever he must have had in his pockets. But he realizes he didn't have enough money. The red light never turned green. So while all of us are waiting and watching, he runs back to his car. And I'm sitting there just bemused, you know. And he's going through the door and the center console, whatever. You can tell he's fishing. And the car's continuing to line up and he runs back to the coin machine in the hopes that it's enough. Finally, the light turns green. It's probably been a minute and a half, and he blows it back into his car and he takes off. But you can imagine, we had cars all the way down to the beginning of the entrance ramp, around the corner, under the bridge on Riverside. There was a lot of traffic. He was humiliated. The people in the cars behind me, I could feel it, were irritated. They were, I'm sure no one in this room has ever done that. Been irritated in traffic. He gave a final wave of apology, rushed to his car, hit the accelerator, and then I get on the highway behind him. And it's weird because right then I had this moment. I had an epiphany. And I thought, what just happened? I thought about his mishap, and I thought about the people who were queued up behind us. Right? No one in this room has ever said, come on, where did you learn to drive? The instructions are right there. It says bike pass on the left, coins on the right. Hello, get off the road, you idiot. I'm sure none of us here have ever done anything like that. But I thought, what did that encounter cost me? In the big picture, like in the life picture, in the grand scheme, what did I have to be angry about? 90 seconds out of my day. He didn't intend to make the wrong decision. Didn't intend to inconvenience the rest of us. He just screwed up, and rather than not pay, he decided he was going to try to figure it out and do the right thing. And beyond that, I thought about me, like I knew what was going down. I had plenty of change in my car. I had plenty of quarters. I didn't jump out. Why did I not jump out and help the guy? Why did I just sit there and watch everything play out? What if it had been somebody I knew, friend, family member? I'd have jumped out and said, no, get in your car. I got it. It's $1.25. You need $1.25. I got it. Go, go, go. And then we would have called each other on our cell phones and had a great laugh about what just happened at the toll booth. So as I'm thinking about all this, I started to sort of make that a starting block into a lot of the other interactions that I've been having with people. I've been thinking about this a lot. That man was an unfamiliar to me, right? He was anonymous. He wasn't in my tribe. He wasn't in my in-group. He was both anyone and no one at the same time. And I realized that my reaction in that circumstance and in other circumstances might be tied to my own evolution. I've evolved. We have all evolved with a tendency toward tribalism, right? The behavior and attitudes that stem from strong loyalty to one's own tribe or social group. Exaltation of my tribe above other groups. My interests and mine are primary. Everybody else is othered, often vilified, so often an interest over what serves us instead of what's about them. Tribes have real benefits. In our primate past, you think about it, fortifying, reproducing, cooperating as tribes. It helped to keep us fed, kept us safe, kept us happy. Outsiders might be predators or even conquerors. Going it alone on the harsh African savanna, that was a recipe for starvation, disaster, even death. Banding ourselves into tribes, communities, groups, helped to ensure that we and our genes had a greater chance of surviving and being passed on. And our distrust of outsiders, our othering of people we did not know who were in the out group, that was part of a survival mechanism. It's a cost-benefit scenario where it actually paid genetic dividends to be distrustful, automatically distrustful and even violent toward unknowns. If you were too generous, you're too nice, you're too sweet, too kind, too accommodating, too welcoming to an other, the risk factor goes up for you. There's an unknown now in your camp. Might be harmless, but for all you know, you're just a few inches away from this other removing you and your entire genetic line from the gene pool. The safer bet was to assume the worst. Push them back, cast them out, even attack them and kill them. Sure, you might be wrong. You may have killed an innocent, but you're pretty much guaranteed that you and your genes would survive and be passed down. In our ancient past, and the ignorant past with so many unknowns, we see the utility of dehumanizing and destroying out groups. It was part of our survival. So I get it. But now we fast forward to 2022 in this world where we've gone from the unknown to a globally connected world of the known. You want to know somebody's face or voice, personality, intent, beliefs, politics, past, present, capabilities, lack of? It has never been easier for human beings to see each other. But I think we've retained those evolved tribal tendencies, that early ancient primate brain, and the sometimes instant othering with anything and anyone not in our personal orbit. And if you don't think we human primates still do this, spend 5 minutes on Twitter. Anybody seeing this on Twitter? I know it's not just me. The typical day on Twitter. And because I was in this weird place where I was starting to reflect on all the examples, all the various ways I'd been treating the other, I began to ask questions about my other interactions with the world. How often had I been disconnecting in unhelpful ways from my fellow human beings? I declared myself higher. Yes, I was more important, more enlightened, superior, more evolved. Was I actually like the Neanderthals of 100,000 years ago, and I'm gawking and shouting, maybe throwing things at anything and everyone who triggered my primate nerve centers? And was that primate brain still sometimes firing like the brains of my ancestors? There was a Twitter user named David. He posted a hysterical clip, which I think sums up far too many exchanges on social media. Here's the clip. Do we have audio? That's Twitter. Yeah, that's pretty much Twitter. One of the most massively powerful tools for connecting humanity to knowledge and to each other. And sometimes it feels like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, etc. were invented so that we could do this to each other. So I'm at a point position in a lot of ways where I get to see a lot of interactions, and I get to witness hugely productive conversations that go like this. F you, moron. No, F you. I see a lot of all that. I'm highly productive exchanges online, and I wonder if we have evolved all that much. But no, we immediately start to protest. Battle lines must be drawn. A defiant stand must be taken. The wrong must be righted. And to accomplish this great moral justice, we must do this. How often had my exchanges started like this? I mean, they didn't end up like that. That started like that. Right off the bat with people I didn't know, people who just crossed my path and my sensibilities, and I cranked up the volume. 0 to nuclear in a heartbeat. Was it necessary, or was this another kind of type 1 error where I was othering and overreacting by instinct? I would start an argument on my phone. I'd be online bickering with somebody. And then I'd be segueing to the office computer because I'm editing a podcast or a video or preparing a speech. But oh my God, they just said something about me that they just replied, I've got to go see. And then that's the stupidest thing I've ever, what a terrible response. I can't let that stand. So I engage again. And then later on, I go down to grab a snack. Laptop is on the dining room table. I've got to log on. I can't stand it. Got to find out what he's doing. Comment after reply. At the end of the day, I would be propped up in bed. There's me and there's Natalie, and the dogs are in our lap, and I'm on my phone, and I'm still there. I'm still locked in over and over. The whole day would be wasted on this stuff. I was just hooked. I was like the misery that loved the company of the miserable, right? And if I wasn't engaging personally, I was this guy. It's me at 3 a.m. reading all 388 comments of two strangers arguing on Facebook. Even when I wasn't fighting, it was still a spectator sport, right? I'm still watching. I'm still engaging in that way. Natalie could always tell when I've been fighting on the internet. She knows me, my wife, Natalie. I come downstairs from my office, and she just sees my face. And she sees the vein in my neck, right? My whole disposition is just hard. And she'd be like, oh, honey, have you been arguing on Facebook again, right? She knows. She knows. And I would lie, and I would say, no, honey, I haven't been arguing. But my face. My face gave me away. Yes, okay, I was arguing on the internet. But somebody was spreading bad information. They were just being awful. So yes, I engaged my righteous keyboard to vanquish this foe. I had to chuckle at this meme I ran across. It said, wow, that internet argument completely changed my fundamental belief system. Said no one ever. Now, I think this is an overstatement. I actually think that there have been exchanges online, an exchange of ideas that have changed minds and perceptions. So I think this is an overreach. But you get the spirit of it. Like a lot of times we tell ourselves we're changing the world, when in truth is, everybody just continues to double down. In my own life, I started to ask about the efficacy of this kind of thing. Like, how often had I told myself that this sort of 30-second opinion tweet was activism, when in fact it was actually slacktivism? The practice of supporting a political or social cause with social media or online petition characterized as involving very little effort or commitment. How easy was that? Just mash into a keyboard, 30 seconds, 280 characters. Congratulations, world. I have activisted today. I wasn't interacting in a personal way, in a meaningful way. I was just tweeting and posting and commenting and snarking and raging and telling myself that yes, out of billions and billions of social media accounts, it was mine. Yes, it would be mine with all its great wisdom that could be heard above the white noise. Thank you, Seth Andrews, internet keyboard warrior. The righteous cause has been defended, the enemy vanquished, and oh, it feels so good to win, doesn't it? Feel the power, feel the rush, feel the satisfaction. I know there are a lot of activist temperaments in this room who know exactly what I'm talking about. And even then we feel, well, even if I overreacted a little bit, let's say I overdid, all right, fine. It's sure better than the alternative. I'd rather overreact than underreact. And no matter how badly I might have behaved, it's nothing compared to them. They're much worse than I am. So there I am. I've got a ready excuse for anything that I say or do. Because, well, I did it for the right reasons, and whatever I did, it's a hell of a lot better than what they're doing over there. It's just a ready get out of reasonableness thinking card, Our brains get high. We get high on feeling better than other people, on feeling like we won, the kick of dopamine that comes. Had I become a kind of argument addict? I was going back again and again. I was getting a hit after hit after hit, and I'd rally my online community, which is easy to do when you have hundreds of thousands of people online. So you go and you get that rush of validation. Oh, there's a great reply. That's clever. Oh, what a devastating retort. Oh, I'm going to share that. I'm going to screenshot that. I'm going to circle that. I'm going to make a meme look even smarter. Then someone finally gets fed up with me, so they block me. So I screen capture the block, and then I post that and say, they can't stand it. They had to block me. Now I really win. Is that really how we change the world? I am growing more and more suspicious. Psychologist Dr. Valerie Tirico is a friend of mine. She posted a a quote from a guy who I'm not familiar with, except that apparently he's some sort of a humanist communicator. But I'm just going to share what he said at face value because I like what he said. It struck a little close to home. Before social media, people were often judged by their deeds. Now they're mostly judged by their opinions. Being good requires no kindness, only the right memes and hashtags, and those revered as saints need no heart of gold, only a silver tongue and brazen nature. Ouch. I am in this photograph and I do not like it. Have you guys seen that line out there? I've enjoyed the feeling of being deemed worthy because I posted the right thing with a hashtag topped with a big helping of snark and sarcasm, and I love my snark. And I got paid off with validation. I felt the endorphins. Was my good post meaning that I was a good person? Was I virtuous or just signaling virtue, or both? Like, what's going on? It's part of the journey that I've been on. What about the trolls? How often had I allowed myself to get freaking suckered in by some malcontent who is just aching to make trouble? They put the bait out there and just aching for me to take it, hoping I would get lured in, smirking as I get sucked in, and I'm replying and getting more and more enraged and doing this and sending links and debunking and doing this and hours trying to respond to all the inflammatory things that they are saying for the purpose of being inflammatory. Reply, comment, it could go on for days. People who were desperate for the currency of my valuable time and energy and oxygen, and I paid them generously. I just paid them off, gifting them myself in a very meaningful way. And I began to see all of this changing me. I began to realize my own heart was starting to harden over and over, day after day, week, month after month. I found myself, these types of engagements were really hardening me. I was becoming more and more cynical about the world. I was more and more unhappy in every aspect of my life. I had a hard time feeling a sense of hope or optimism. I had a hard time enjoying the day, enjoying the moments in this finite life. I felt like it's all going to hell in a handbasket, and I'm miserable. I just felt me changing. My empathy center started to shut down, and I was starting to kind of turn to stone. It sounds melodramatic, but I think you know the spirit of what I'm trying to say. Now, I'm going to tell you a story that gives me no joy to share. It's humiliating, it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed by it now, but I need to share, I guess. I feel the need to share because it's a snapshot of what had been happening to me, okay? I used to be a video producer, and we traveled all the time. Almost every weekend we were going to a different client to shoot video, and then we'd come back during the week and edit the video. And so I was at, I think, was the Houston airport, and I was coming up an escalator heading to my next connection, wherever I was going. And I get to the top of the escalator, and I see there's paramedics. They're all surrounding somebody who's laying on the ground, maybe 50 feet away. This is not him. This is a stock photo. I did not take a picture of the poor man and bring it here to Minnesota to show you guys, okay? It's a stock photo to help me tell the story. No idea what's happening to the guy. I have no idea why I did this. What was my first response when I saw that guy? I reached down to my phone, and I did this. I started recording video. I was nothing more than a voyeur looking at an impersonal person. I didn't think about his privacy. I didn't think about his well-being. My first thought is, I gotta get this on video. Not that I would ever put it on social media. I wouldn't have put it on the internet. What was I gonna do with it? I didn't even know. Send it to Natalie, show it to friends. I don't know. My first instinct. And then one of the paramedics looked up and saw me and yelled at me, "Stop it!" And I immediately, it's like lightning struck me. And I took the phone down and I gave him that gesture of apology, and I walked off as quickly as I could. And my face was flushed and I was red and I was humiliated, I was embarrassed. And I thought, what has happened to me? How did I get to this point, I was amusing my brain with the plight of an anonymous other. How had I become that calloused, so closed off, so unconcerned? Did he have a heart attack or a stroke or an aneurysm? I mean, how had my humanity become inhumanity? He was a human brother, for Pete's sake. He was in the midst of personal trauma, and I was gawking at him like I gawked at those fail videos on YouTube where terrible things happen to people and they become viral. I was doing that to a real live person, the same kind of dispassionate distance that I had been committing at the toll booth and in many other areas of my life. Why didn't I rush over to express concern? Why didn't I do the human things? Now again, I'm not saying tribalism doesn't have its good side. As someone who's not hugely close to his family because they are theocratic and religious, MAGA, Christian types, I mean, even when we're together, I feel an outsideness. I, in this room, feel a sense of family and belonging and community. Like, this is a meeting of my people. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're my tribe. And so I totally get the benefits of having that sort of tribal thing and how it can be really good. We join together, we share life together, we make and develop friendships, we set goals, we achieve dreams, we change the world together. So I'm not knocking tribes because you are mine, whether you like it or not. You're mine, okay, I'm just saying. Our values, our interests, our personalities. Sports teams, what a great case study in tribalism. Oklahoma, like football's a religion. Is it that way with the Vikings here? Is it like football is a religion here? I've already got somebody about to come out of his chair. He's like, Vikings, yeah, go Minnesota. Okay, it's fine. Well, a big rivalry in Oklahoma, which is a football state. Oklahoma University versus Oklahoma State. This is a rivalry. They have one annual game. They have a showdown once a season. It's so hot. It's so hotly contested. They have a nickname for the game. They call it Bedlam. You going to Bedlam this year? Like, that's the big game. It's either they face off against each other and people have to be you're red or you're orange. Which tribe do you belong in? They're both Oklahoma. They stand opposed unless one of our Oklahoma teams takes on Texas. Now the Oklahoma tribes, we come together. We are one unit. We are now in opposition against the evil Texas Longhorns because they are now the other. Of course, this is all in fun, but it's a great example of our tribal tendencies and how we frame things in tribal ways. Here's another great example. Your band sucks, man. My band is awesome. Like musical tribes, what genre do you like? And if you want to see an example of this, I can walk into any room at any time, at any moment, and I can say one word, and you watch people square off into tribes. I'll walk in and I'll say this, Nickelback. Immediately, people like, Nickelback sucks, man. Nickelback's awesome. I mean, literally, you see people. How about this one? How about this example of tribal rivalry? DC versus Marvel. Oh, my God. This is like a religion, man. These people are hardcore. Like, it's like it has to be binary. You can't love both franchises. But I mean, come on, you have to prefer one. Are you a DC guy or are you a Marvel guy? What are political parties if not tribes? And I think this is necessary. I came out of Fox News conservatism, what I call Fox News because I listened and watched I was Rush Limbaugh and Coulter. I was that guy very much. And I came out of that. Once I came out of fundamental Christianity, I had to re-examine how I really felt about the world. What are my values now that they're not being spoon-fed to me by the theocrats? And I realized that at the end of the day, my humanist values much more often leaned left. That's just how I felt. I don't love being a liberal. I don't love being a Democrat. It's just if I had to choose, that's kind of where I am, whether it comes to reproductive choice or LGBT protections or the legalization of weed or right to die issues or universal health care, I mean, blah, blah, blah. So I'm a liberal, and I'm glad to be a liberal. And I think being able to define that with a tribal label has its uses, so I'm not knocking it. But I'm just revealing again that we're talking about tribes, warring factions. What are nations if not tribes? We're the home country, they're the other country. This was huge when I was in evangelical Oklahoma, right? America's the greatest country on the face of the earth. All them foreigners, who cares what they do? That was really our attitude, right? It's interesting, I wrote in my book, Confessions of a Former Fox News Christian, that I would then go and I would ask people By what metric is the United States the greatest country on the face? Like you actually asked them to take it a step further. Well, we are. We're free. We have freedom. Australia's got freedom, New Zealand, the UK, Canada, nations all over the world have. Well, our freedom's better than their freedom. What other metric are we looking at? Is it the crime rate, the murder rate? No, we're not number one. Quality of health care? No. Cost of living? No. Housing? No. I mean, most wars, most people killed in wars? No. I mean, it's just one metric after the other. We fail. You know what we're number one at besides military spending? Statistically, the United States is the best in the world at national pride. We are number one at saying we're number one. Those of other countries, those other tribes are inferior. We wave our standards. What are flags? National flags, if not tribal standards, marking territory. Religions of the world are tribes. Each one has its own signature, community, leader, ideology, belief, code of conduct. And then you can see the fragmentation within tribes, and this is always fun because I went to a Baptist school. In just the United States, southern states, majority Baptist. Pentecostal is a close runner-up in the Bible Belt states. You got western states, they lean a little more Catholicism. Methodists dominate much of the middle of the country. Lutherans, Episcopalians, Catholics dominating some of the regions up north. You can even see the splinter tribes within the splinter tribe. The Baptists are hysterical. Are you a Southern Baptist? Are you an American Baptist, Independent, Free Will, Seventh-day, Reformed, Full Gospel? There are hundreds of subgroups of Baptist churches, each declaring themselves ideologically and theologically more right than all of the others. It's just bizarre, but you can see tribalism, these factions, they're all around us, for good and for ill. Religious tribes, non-religious tribes. And don't think that atheists are immune from tribal thinking. As much as we like to think we are much more enlightened and superior than everybody else, we are just as human and just as guilty of having that evolved primate brain firing in those ways, right? We are not above this phenomenon. I was online the other day, I guess it's been a few weeks, and I saw this conversation go out. Somebody said, well, I think I'm an atheist. I really think I've come to the point where I should say I'm an atheist. And someone jumps in, they say, well, maybe you're agnostic. And someone else said, well, are you an agnostic atheist? Or are you a Gnostic atheist? Well, someone else, you can't be a Gnostic atheist. Well, maybe are you an anti-theist? Are you a humanist? Are you a new atheist or a classical atheist? And all of a sudden, people started arguing with each other. And it went on for days and days. Like, which tribe do you belong to? How do you label yourself? I don't care. Call yourself a Chevy Nova for all you. I don't care. As long as your journey belongs to you, who cares what label you call yourself, But we as atheists often get hung up on this kind of thing. And I think it's an interesting conversation to have. I think labels have uses. I mean, I call myself a humanist or an atheist or whatever. I mean, I think they have some uses, but to get snagged on that stuff just seems crazy. But everything's a hot button. You guys notice that? I mean, everything's a freaking nuclear meltdown. I could go online right now. I could leave this room. I could go online and post any sentence with any angle on any of these issues, any hot button issue, any of those things. Doesn't matter what it is, wouldn't matter what I said. And wait 6 minutes. And then go back to the comment section, and you would only see that. How often had I been guilty? That keyboard mashing, snarking, name-calling, shout-down blowtorch that produced a ton of heat, but hardly any light. And who was I fighting with? I didn't even know most of these people. They're just people who grazed through my timeline. Had I reduced them to just cardboard cutouts, these thin cardboard cutouts that I could just knock over really easy? There's great utility in dehumanizing outgroups, taking away their own humanity. We draw them in one dimension, like the cardboard cutout. It makes them easier to knock over. I was a devout Christian. I didn't know anything about Muslims, right? Nothing about Muslims. Didn't know any Muslims. Only time I heard about Islam was when there was a terrorist attack. Radical Islamist blows up X or Y or beheads or whatever. Only time I ever really heard about Islam was domestic, well, we have that, was Islamic terrorism. So in my brain, Muslim equals terrorist. Tragically binary thinking. Simple, convenient, no consideration required. Had I done some homework, had I had some nuance, I would have realized that the vast majority of practicing Muslims are actually beautiful, peaceful people, and the vast majority of people who are oppressed and raped and murdered by radical Islamists are themselves Muslims. The victims are almost always Muslims. But I had no room for that in my binary brain. I've seen MAGA types dehumanize my 100 million member Democratic tribe. The Democrat, not just someone who disagrees politically, philosophically, ideologically about the issues of the day. The MAGA narrative lately has been this, and you can see the utility in it, the dehumanizing in it. Democrats are evil, right? So I'm not just someone who holds a particular philosophy or political opinion. I'm Satan. I'm satanic. Right now, 1 in 5 Americans believe some part of the QAnon conspiracy theory that Democrats are demonic, part of a secret deep state conspiracy to install a satanic regime. High-level Democrats like Hillary Clinton are engaging in demon-worshiping, pedophilia, and child trafficking out of the basement of a Washington, D.C. pizza parlor, extracting and drinking the blood of children for the purposes of using adrenochrome to develop a fountain of youth so we can live forever and be gods. And what the What century is this? I'm not a Hillary apologist, I'm not a Democrat apologist, but I'm trying to reveal that there is great utility in reducing us to evil, with a capital E, satanic, demonic, subhuman, right? It's much easier to declare jihad, a kind of a Christian nationalist jihad against us, if we are not human, if they strip us of our humanity, perhaps even justifying a holy war. And as I watch the headlines, I am terrified that that may be coming. I'm afraid that some of these people are going to essentially decide they need to take their country back, and they're going to do it behind a rifle. And if I'm to be fair, I have seen overreach in my own atheist tribe, my own Democrat tribe against the Republicans. I've seen overreach. I've heard some of my fellow atheist libs connect these dots. All right, someone identifies as a Christian. They say they believe in Jesus, they love Jesus, okay? Well, now they're actually under the umbrella of the Christian nationalists, the people who are in violation of state-church separation in the Constitution, who want to install a state-church theocracy and make everybody else second-class citizens. We're seeing white nationalists and racist bigots. They've infected the Christian nationalist culture. They are also then enabling the domestic terrorist of January 6, 2021. As a result, all Christians, all Republicans are Nazis. I've actually seen people make this argument. If you identify as this, you are now enabling or in league or identifying with the most extreme or the worst of your group, etc. All Republicans, all Christians are Nazis. What I hear often is Christo-fascists. I'm not going to deal with those Christo-fascists. Already the binary thinkers, the knee-jerkers, are saying Seth Andrews doesn't think the Republican Party is filled and infected with Christian white supremacy. Did I say that? Did I imply that? No. I am convinced that the 21st century GOP does have a religious racist cancer. And I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm outraged, I'm terrified of these white Christian jihadists. Do they represent every American Christian? Is that fair? What about this guy? He's a pastor, famous pastor, John Pavlovitz, a Christian. He and I disagree about his interpretation of Jesus and the Bible. His Jesus is accepting to LGBT people and would never judge anyone. I think that's amazing, but it's obvious that he's not reading his Bible. But I mean, fine, I'll take a moderate Christian. I'll take someone who doesn't want to judge people. I'll take someone who wants state-church separation and reproductive choice. That's John. That's Pastor John. He and I both want the same thing. condemning the insurrection, supporting the Constitution, loving people, being humanists. He and I have a hell of a lot more in common than we ever had in disagreement. Does he deserve to be called a Christo-fascist? What about Dr. Kristen Dumais? She teaches theology at a Bible college. Just published a book called Jesus and John Wayne, talking about this weird toxic masculinity that infects white Christian nationalism, this deification of people who go in and just stomp their way to dominance. I've interviewed Dr. Dumais. She's amazing. We are friends and allies. What about the organization Christians Against Christian Nationalism? A whole assembly of God believers, reverends and pastors, bishops, religious leaders. Yeah, they're religious. Many of them might be Republican. We might disagree politically, but they're part of the resistance against the anti-humanists, part of the resistance against this white American theocracy. And they agree with you and me that any God worth his salt wouldn't need the state to become a church. Religion should be a protected private exercise. A God worth his salt would not need a Christian nation. Now, in terms of my values and my desire for goodness, these aren't my adversaries or enemies. They're members of my team. This is my tribe. Are they stupid? Are they awful? Are they evil? Are they Nazis? Are they Christo-fascists? Or are they good people? Here's a trap I set occasionally for someone who's going hard at any God believer. God believers are this, God believers are that, God believers are stupid or insane, mentally ill, whatever. And I stop and I say, would you care to know that my wife believes in God? And you should see their face. She's in the most casual sense, but my wife is a God believer. Now they had to confront the humanity of the person that they just said was a Christo-fascist, cardboard cutout, evil, Nazi, mentally ill, whatever pejorative they want to pull out of their pocket. Hey, you're talking about the love of my life. Do you continue to stand by that? And it just rattles the cage. And it punctuates the humanity. She's the most beautiful person I know, the love of my life. We disagree theologically. We are both humanists. She's my people. She's my tribe. I don't see both parties as equal. I don't see the religious and non-religious in terms of claims as equal. I don't see our assessments about doctrines and dogmas as equally reasonable. But don't tell me 200 million professing American Christians are all Bible-banging jihadist Nazis. My next-door neighbor, freaking worship pastor at a local church. I would trust him with my life. Lovely man, lovely family, and a dear friend. Why had I so often become reductive and simplistic, a labeler of complex people and ideas? Why did I jam them into my cookie cutter? It's all, it's nothing, us, them, insider, outsider, A, B, yes, no, black, white, good, evil, human, inhuman. The military does this. The military knows the utility of dehumanizing, right? It's shattering to our humanity, the idea of shooting or knifing or bombing a person. But if you do it to an inhuman thing, it's a whole lot easier, isn't it? I interviewed this guy, Vietnam veteran, John Musgrave. He was featured in the Ken Burns documentary, The Civil War. It's a brilliant 10-part series, which I think is still on Netflix. And he talked about the trauma that he experienced when he shot and killed an NBA soldier out in the field of battle. He shot and killed a human being who fell and died in front of him, and it traumatized him beyond language. His humanity shattered. He could not deal. But, he said, after seeing one of his own men step on a landmine, he made what he called a deal with the devil. He said, quote, I said I'll never kill another human being as long as I'm in Vietnam. However, I'll waste as many gooks as I can find. I'll wax as many dinks as I can find. I'll smoke as many zips as I can find, but I ain't gonna kill anybody. You turn a subject into an object. It's racism 101. How often had I been turning a subject into an object to make them easier to destroy? I jammed them into my box, and then I crushed the box. I've seen tribes turn on their own. You commit some sort of act of ideological impurity, You say the wrong thing or you make a mistake. I mean, what human hasn't been wrong about something? And the tribes literally turn on one of their own for even minor infractions. I did a 2021 interview with a clinical psychologist. His name is Dr. Hector Garcia. He talked about tribalism from within and without. Here's a clip.
So, a biological anthropologist out of Harvard named Richard Wrangham wrote an amazing book called The Goodness Paradox, where he makes a good case for the idea that one of the things that helped humans be domesticated, in a sense, be more peaceable with one another, is that we policed our own tribes and murdered people who got out of hand, who were too aggressive. And that went along for such a long time that also contributed to a fear that we have of our own group. And it wasn't just those who were overly aggressive. For other infractions, for just not towing the line of the tribe, for not any kind of social deviance could put you at risk. The witch hunts of our history, you could say.
I have watched in horror as people have come to a point of disagreement over an issue, and they don't call each other up and say, we need to talk. We have coffee, or can I call you, or you want to FaceTime? I really have some concerns. Reaching out with goodwill, allowing good people can sometimes have bad ideas. Sometimes we might be wrong, and maybe we don't know it or don't realize it. Instead, our first move is to log on to Twitter and nuke that person from orbit. There's this thinking that if you're wrong out there, you're bad. If you're bad, you're garbage. I've heard this talk a lot. Talk about dehumanizing. I'm not saying there aren't horrible people in the world who deserve our justifiable anger and strong opposition. You've been watching this immigration thing down in freaking Florida? Like, I'm not saying we give DeSantis any quarter, right? I'm not saying that we play nice with our ideological adversaries on the macro level. I'm talking about everyday exchanges with everyday people. In our battles to defeat terrible people doing destructive things, there are hard targets. Destructive agents of jaw-dropping awfulness, they must be countered, they must be fought, they must be defeated. Sometimes, yes, you must release the Kraken. You have to release the... Anybody remember the Kraken from Clash of the Titans? I got a few people here. Okay, good. Yes, I blocked people. Nobody gets to come on one of my social media pages and be horrible and abusive. I don't owe them my real estate. And of course, you know, if they come and they make things unpleasant for everybody else, I show them the door. Nobody has permission to come and take a dump in your living room, and you have to allow them to sit on the furniture, right? And then they go and they say, well, Seth Andrews just can't handle it. He's a fan of censorship, you know, that type of thing. It's a total straw man. Of course, there are times to draw the hard line. But had I ever made it worse? Have I ever overreacted? Had I sacrificed thoughtfulness and nuance, even my own kindness, on the altar of the extreme? And I oppose extremism in my tribe for the same reason I oppose it in theirs. We are all guilty of potentially getting caught up in the moment, being biased, oversimplifying, knee-jerking, losing perspective, jumping from reaction to overreaction, being an online arsonist, torching everybody and everything that didn't pass our tests. Was I giving attention to the wrong people? Was I giving the wrong kind of attention to the right people? Had I become addicted to outrage? Sometimes it's justifiable and warranted. I'm outraged at the outrageous, and so are you. But outrage is dangerous, too, because it's a drug. We get high on it. You get the rush, you know, your amygdala fires up and the adrenaline flows and your heart kicks in and the mind races. And the weirdest and sometimes worst part about outrage is it's absolutely free. Costs nothing. I can get my outrage hit anywhere. Had I become an outrage addict and turning to stone in the process? Social media exposed as an outrage for profit industry. People have found ways to monetize our outrage. Did you see that Washington Post article? The posts that target our anger centers got 5 times the engagement. Now, litter those pages with ads, make them clickbait, put them behind a paywall, and you are talking millions and millions of dollars. Posts that prompted lots of reaction tended to keep users more engaged, and that was the key to Facebook's business. Dr. Arthur Brooks is a social scientist and a New York Times contributor. He wrote an article about our culture of contempt. He referenced something that psychologists call motive attribution asymmetry, where each side thinks it is driven by benevolence, the other side is evil and motivated by hatred, and is therefore an enemy with whom one cannot negotiate or compromise. They're unreachable. Only thing to do is to fire up the steamroller and crush them. They're wicked, they're a waste of breath, they're a lost cause. Just decimate them because they cannot be reasoned with. I know this guy. Hugely frustrating dude. Bible thumper, Christian nationalist, one nation under God, Christian nation, anti-gay, anti-LGBT, anti-reproductive choice. He was anti-science. He didn't know atheists, didn't like atheists, didn't trust atheists, thought they were all evil and going to hell. Frustrating guy. You know who that guy was? Me, 25 years ago. That's not a mullet, by the way. That's just a shadow. Not a mullet. That's just a shadow. It's dark photo, dark photography. Not a neck beard, just a shadow. Me 25 years ago. Was I a Christo-fascist, Nazi, evil human being? Or was I just a wrong-headed young guy with some bad ideas? I had bad ideas, but I'll tell you, I'd also been indoctrinated. I was also a victim of bad ideas. Are we willing to allow that maybe those two things can exist in the same space, that it's not a binary analysis? What if people had written me off? What if I'd logged on to Twitter today? How would I have been treated? Would they have shredded me, the Twitter call-out culture? Would they have declared war on me? What would have happened? Like when I was going through my journey, I just lost my mic, there we go. If I'd been on my journey and I'd have felt unsafe and attacked and vilified, what would that have done to my journey? I don't think I would have never gone back to fundy Christianity, but would I have sort of existed in that outer membrane where I'm like the most casual of Christian? I'm going to identify as a Christian. I won't go to church, I won't read or own a Bible, but at least I'll be, I'll have people. I feel safe. Would I have ended up there? I don't know. I wonder about it sometimes. But I'm thankful. I was fortunate that people that I encountered saw me as a human being and saw me in three dimensions as somebody who was, trying to figure it out and had some bad ideas but wasn't evil. And they disagreed and they challenged and encouraged me. They didn't other me in that way. They didn't dehumanize me, and they were patient with me. And I'm thankful. I feel like I won the lottery on that. I've made a little checklist. I use it. You can take it, you can leave it. But as we get set to draw to a close here, I just want to show you what my process is these days. It's an imperfect list, but this is kind of what I'm trying to do to keep myself from going into freaking orbit, okay? This is hard for me. It's hard, but it's part of my process. Before I engage with somebody online, how's my mindset today? Has it been a crap day? Am I already in the red zone? You ever heard of the 6% event? Here's how the 6% event works. So if I get up, I'm in a pretty good mood, and I don't know, somebody left the refrigerator door open and spoiled all the food, right? Well, we'll call that a 6% event. I'm irritated by it, but I started in a good place, so I just kind of went to 6, so it just nudged me there. I didn't blow my stack. Now, let's say that I wake up and then the car's low on gas and I was late for work and I got chewed out by the boss and this happened and that happened and I read a terrible headline, and before you know it, I have come to the point where I've been notching up all day and I'm at 95%. I've accumulated this sort of stress and tension. Now I come home and the fridge door is open. That 6% event puts me over 100 and I lose it. How's my mindset? Am I ready for the 6% event? Who am I dealing with? Who are these people? Have I taken any moment to even find out what their background is? What's their page look like? Are they a troll? Are they operating in bad faith? I normally don't engage. If I realize all they want is my oxygen and attention, I normally don't engage, with one exception, which I'll tell you about in a second. Am I being manipulated? Is this clickbait for outrage? Does someone just want me to click for some other reason that is not a good faith reason? I like that game. That's shot from War Games, the 80s movie where it said the only winning move is not to play. Sometimes the only winning move is not to play. When I have a troll who's trying to bait me, one of the best ways to get them to lose their minds is to not give them the oxygen. And they'll get louder and louder and louder until they burn themselves out and move on to somebody who will engage. It's beautiful. Am I leading with escalatory language? Is the first thing out of my mouth, what is wrong with you, you freaking moron? What do I expect that to? Is that the way to start the conversation? I ridicule the ridiculous. I take no quarter with the Bible. I think the Bible has some very, very, very troubling stuff in it. I just narrated Dr. Joshua Bowen's book, The Atheist Guide to the Old Testament, Volume 2, where we get into things like slavery. We get into things like the subjugation and even sexual assault of women. It's all right there in the Bible. I ridicule the talking donkey and the Superman who gains strength by hair length and the guy who impregnates a teen virgin via ghost sex and all of those stories. I go hard after religion. But I treat Christianity a whole lot different than I treat Christians. The ideas I'll go after, but when I'm dealing with human beings, the temperature of what I do change. Who else is watching? Now, this is the one instance where if I'm engaging somebody who might not be operating in good faith, I might stick with it because it depends on who's in the periphery. You ever watch Hitch debate somebody? And there's like him and an interlocutor, call it William Lane Craig or somebody. Did either one of those people ever look at each other during a debate and go, you know what, you're absolutely right. You've changed my mind with your superior points. I now reverse my entire position. Refunds given. Let's all go have coffee. It never happens. Never happens. The purpose of the debate is not to get the interlocutors to change each other's mind. It's really about you because you get a chance to watch the ideas presented in a position of safety where you don't feel personally attacked. And so if I'm engaging someone even in bad faith, but I feel like others might be watching in a productive way, I might engage. What's my goal? How many times have I started mashing without even knowing what I wanted to get out of the exchange? No idea. I was just reactive. And finally, am I really changing anything, or did I just tell myself? Had I just spent 3 days screaming into the white noise, increasing the volume, and finally to come full circle, how much of my approach was just about my tribes? Insular. Had I othered that person? Were they awful? Had I outgrouped them in an unfair way? Had I missed our shared humanity? I have come to realize maybe not all of the others in this world deserve to be treated like I have been treating them. Maybe I need to do a better job of seeing the opportunities to get out of my seat and be a part of the freaking solution, to be an agent of rescue when someone gets it wrong. I'll bet this room is loaded with stories of people who used to have an awful idea about something. You've all got a story. Man, I can't believe I used to think this. I can't believe I used to do that. I can't believe I used to believe this. You weren't a bad person. You just had some bad ideas. You just needed a chance. Sometimes in life we have to burn a bridge, yes, but it feels so much better to build one when you can. Sometimes we have to curse the darkness, but whenever possible, it feels so much more satisfying to shine some light. Sometimes we do have to crush an enemy, but whenever we can, it's wonderful, so much more satisfying to develop an ally. I agree with Ingersoll. We rise by lifting others. We don't have to surrender our snark, my friends. I love my snark. I will continue to snark. I'm just saying. But I will do a better job of trying to be more strategic about how I use my sharp tongue, my razor tongue, and try to also provide an example of mature and measured strength and strategy and empathy and compassion and humanity that represent the kind of world I want to live in. Here's the upside. And this is the last thing. The one good thing, the silver lining about the fact that we are outraged at the outrageous and we tend to kick into orbit and go nuclear, and I think one of the good sides, I think it reveals that we care. That the reason I'm mashing it, the reason I'm grieved, the reason I lose sleep, the reason I'm activisting is because I care. The reason you do is because it matters. And I think that's the good part. It's a reflection of your good heart. You don't want to see the world spiraling down the drain. You don't want to see people dehumanized and mistreated, and you don't want to see the oppression. You don't want to see all of the awfulness. You want to see us achieve our best, and you become outraged at the outrageous. It's a reflection, a positive reflection on your own innate human goodness. I think that's a good thing. We want to see humans and humanism win the day. For that reason, let me close with a little section from a letter from a blog that was posted by this guy, my friend and ally, Pastor John Pavlovitz. He wrote a blog called An Open Letter to Those Who Still Give a Damn. It spoke to me, maybe it'll speak to you. It goes like this. You are in good company, so be encouraged. Fight like hell to keep your heart soft, even while so many people have become hardened. Yes, the world is upside down right now, but we can make it right, one beautiful act of decency at a time. Get some rest and keep going. The world needs people like you. Blessed are the damn givers, for they will right-side the world. Thank you so much for having me today. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much, Seth. We are going to do the book drawing, and then we're going to do the Q&A portion. So I'd like to invite Nick up here with the bucket, the early seasonal bucket. All right, so the winner will receive a voucher for one of Seth's books of their choosing, and he has the book table outside so they can redeem that after the program. So the winner is Ann Loper. Anne, are you here? There she is. Congratulations. All right, so rules for Q&A. Please keep your questions brief. Your questions should only be a single question. And we're not going to do, not a compound question. And we're not going to do follow-ups because we want to make sure that we can get as many people that want to participate too as possible before we switch over to our social hour. That will be out in the lobby. And we encourage everyone to stick around for that. They'll have drinks and snacks, and it'll be a really great time to chat and get to know each other. Yeah, so looking forward to that. But feel free, if you do have a question you'd like answered, to come line up over here, and we can get started with that.
Boy, whoever won the book, it's like the most anticlimactic prize. Oh, Seth. Yeah, Seth wrote a book. Great, thanks. It's free. Oh, wonderful. No, but I did bring some. It's funny, I had an inventory from before COVID for a speaking tour that I was going on, and then COVID hit, and they've gone nowhere. So I brought them, and I will be shameless and say, please make your checks payable to Save the Andrews Family Foundation and buy. I will sign almost anything. I would be honored, but I do have some stuff out there at the merch table. I don't have any great wisdom, guys. I'm not Yoda. I'm the guy who took 30 years to crawl out of the fundy faith, right? But I have done a lot of this kind of thing, and I'm really about discussions and conversations like I am on the show. So, you know, I'm not a great mind. I'm not the thinking atheist. The thinking atheist is an idea, especially for those of us who came out of a faith culture. I don't want to just believe. I'd like to try to know. But if you have something to contribute, a moment of challenge, something to add, you do have a question, I'll do my best. The mic is right here, and I'll try to keep my answers brief, and we'll knock it out and then go hang out together. That's my favorite part. Go ahead.
Hey, my name's Eric. My wife grew up a Christian, and after being in Christianity for a while, she realized it wasn't for her, and is an atheist now. You mentioned that your wife Natalie is still a Christian, and I'm finding that my conversations about some of the videos I've watched really get to her, because she's still in that kind of mentality of defending her Christian faith. Yeah. I think my first problem was that I showed her some Matt Dillahunty videos crushing some callers, but...
Oh, wait, hang on. You started with Dillahunty?
So when you have maybe a charged conversation and it were to come up and with you, and it comes up between you and your wife, how have you handled that, or is she pretty understanding?
I'm not a relationship counselor, my friend. This is just one guy's opinion. I'm a crusader. I love a good scrap. I want to get out and change the world. You know what it's like to have an activist nature, right? I mean, many of you. I think that's why you're engaged in this community. You want to be a part of it. And I've always been that way. You know, I was a spokesperson for Youth for Christ in high school, standing on stage. And I was a Christian broadcaster, standing on stage and doing the broadcast for thousands. And I mean, I've always been that guy who I just want to get into it, you know. And my wife is very not that way. She doesn't like conflict. She's a peacemaker. She doesn't get caught up in, oh, the doctrine is false or whatever. She doesn't, you know. She doesn't, and we've had some hard discussions about why it matters, and we've had our moments where, you know, we really stood apart on that issue. But my journey is not about her, and her journey is not about me. So when you show someone who you know has some sensitive nerves about her former faith, and she's still on her journey, and you show her someone who, let's face it, Matt will be the first to admit his stuff is a little polarizing. Right? Matt goes hard at Christianity. That might be an approach that we could reconsider. I think with her journey belongs to her. She's not comfortable going after the Bible. She doesn't want to dissect the tenets of Christianity. She probably doesn't care if there was a real Jesus or there wasn't. You know, at this point, she's probably still navigating through a lot of the baggage that she's carried. You know, she's probably still got some scars, maybe even open wounds from the faith that she came out of. And so I think my tack would be to encourage her that you take your journey at your speed. You be you. The whole thing you came out of was they told you who to be. They told you what to believe. They might even told you who to marry, how to live, what isn't and isn't acceptable, who to hang out with. You've escaped that. You're free. So why don't you discover who you are, and let me be here for you, whatever that means to support it. And if she then becomes safe enough and curious enough where she wants to get into dissecting the Bible and getting into the Kalam cosmological argument and all that other stuff, you know, let her initiate. Let her lean into that. But until then, if you want to go hard at Christianity, I think you should. That's your journey. And you and I will join forces in that because I'm the same way. But I think, you know, create an environment of safety and respect where she can take the journey at her speed. And if it means she doesn't care and she just doesn't want to engage in that way, she needs time, I think wonderful. That's the whole thing. Your life belongs to you. And that's the message I would give her if it was me. I don't know. If anybody has a better solution, there's the mic. Anybody else? Oh, I'm that good? Only one. Okay, have a nice day. We'll see you later. Okay, wonderful.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Very kind.
Yes, and I appreciate you sharing these words and discussing humanism because so many people don't know what that is. Yeah. One quick comment and one question. I like that you use the word productive about conversation because that's what I've come to believe in work life, dealing with many kinds of people, at home, while I do door knocking. Am I saying something that's going to be productive? It's hard to know if it's true or not, but that to me is the measure. If I can take a pause, that's what I aim for. So thank you.
Would you call that the difference between like conflict and constructive conflict as well? Like, would you see that? Like, there are times to get into it, but am I actually producing anything, right?
Yeah. And kind of like some things you said, I feel very differently and very strongly about this thing, but I know you're not there. So what is it going to do? It's going to elevate and nothing more. So yeah, thank you. My question is something else I believe is we are all doing what we feel we must do to get through our day and protect ourselves, have safety and security for ourselves, whatever it is. It may not make sense to anyone else. It could be for ourselves. It could be for, say, our child. It could be for our community, big, close, or broader. And I think thinking about that helps me understand better where they're coming from and try to see that even if, again, no one else that I know would agree with you, you're doing what you have to do. And if I can connect in with that perspective, then maybe I can have a connection with you, and we can have an actual conversation, even on one small thing. And I wonder what your thought is about that as a form of connection.
There's a banner between us. Do you mind if I move it real quick? Oh, look, I can see the mic. Thank you. David McCraney and I just had a conversation. He's a science journalist. He wrote a book called How Minds Change. And he has great observations about how people change their minds from a position of safety. I'm not talking about discomfort, because I think discomfort is part of how I became uncomfortable, and that's when I began to evolve and change. But as far as you will never browbeat somebody into an epiphany. They have to feel safe and enough that they can be vulnerable enough to have the exchange about ideas. And that's an epiphany that I've had in the last several years. My first thought was, well, how do you defend the donkey in Genesis that speaks Hebrew? What idiot could possibly believe that story? Is this a children's myth? What if it was in the Quran? Would you believe that? Immediately I'm leading with data points. And they bristle, and they lock down, and they double down, and everybody leaves frustrated. I never had one of those conversations that bore fruit. It did nothing but separate us. And when I started actually developing a relationship first, seeing their humanity first, asking some questions, finding what we might have in common first, and creating a space where they knew they were safe with me, that's when things have begun to turn around for me. Does that remotely answer your question? I'm not saying that I have to hold quarter, or I have to give, I don't have to give space to awful people. But if it's someone who's where I was and I want to change the world, hitting them over the head with a baseball bat and data points is not changing. It's not working. So I had to try to figure out what might work better. And starting with our humanity and making that step one, and then getting into safety. This is a safe place where we can begin to establish our disagreements in an area of trust. We can actually ask a lot of questions. I love the Socratic method. That's where I've started to make some headway. So yeah, I appreciate your perspective very much. Thank you. Thank you. Long freaking answers. This is what happens when you invite a podcast host to speak at a Unitarian church. I'll try to be brief here. We'll do these here and call it. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for talking today. I think the subject matter of your talk was very important.
See what I mean? It's kind of hot, though. Like, you can see how people would take it the wrong way and say, Seth thinks we need to sing Kumbaya with our ideological opponents.
Wait, and that's not what you were saying? Okay.
Oh, God.
I know that your MO is a storyteller, right? I know that you like to tell stories. Do you have any stories or examples of a time you were talking about your new approaches to self-reflect? How am I doing? What kind of mood am I in? Who is this person? That kind of thing. Do you have any examples where you saw fruit from that, where you were surprised that you were able to make a connection with another person because you stood back and changed your approach?
Well, most of my interactions are actually, unfortunately, of the most casual kind. I head a community of 300,000 people on Facebook and a radio audience of how many. Mostly, though, it's about not shutting down at the very beginning. So I'm planting seeds, and what we do then is we have a moment of sort of shared humanity. Is that forum conducive to us having the long, drawn-out conversations? In most of those contexts, no. But like my next-door neighbor, my worship pastor, had him over for dinner. And did I go hard at the Bible? What the hell do you think you're preaching from the stage? No. It was really celebrating what we did have in common and our love for people. And we had very meaningful conversations. Neither one of us really changed each other in terms of our positions. But what we did do is find that we may have had in many meaningful ways more in common than we had apart, which is my larger point. I'm not saying there aren't times to draw that line, but I think we're drawing it much too quickly in a lot of instances and missing opportunities. I have another story. I'll finish with that story. Remind me to finish with a story that's a little bit related to that. But it's part of my process. Do I have any amazing, wow, everybody sat down and sang Kumbaya and confetti fell from the sky and there was, Adele music playing overhead as we all romped to Reasonville together? No, right now it's just a process. It's a long freaking road. Even was saying that. Dave McRaney was saying, you will not do this in one sitting or 2 or even 10. This is a long, long game. And that's the game I'm playing, and I'll give you what I've got in a year. We'll see how we do. Okay.
Hello, thank you for your thoughts and time.
Appreciate it.
Really important topic that you covered, and I think it's something that is important to more than just this tribe here in this room, or perhaps you might see on your speaking tour. I've noticed you're dipping your toe into the non-religious world with the fantastic new podcast, True Stories with Seth Andrews.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You don't have to do that, but thank you. You're very kind.
Do you have a plan to take a version of this presentation to a wider audience rather than just speaking to, I mean, because like we're just weirdos. You know? Like this is something that everyone should hear, and I think you have a good voice to. You know to
what
that.
I don't have beyond True Stories is a brand new endeavor that I just launched for a couple of reasons. One is that I'm a fan of the former storytelling style of broadcaster Paul Harvey, who died 15 years ago, when he used to do this feature where he would take you on a journey. I'll give you an example of one in just a second. And so he's passed on, but no one was doing it, so I started a new show. It's TrueStoriesPodcast.com. And it's just apolitical, it's not religious, there's no social commentary, it's just stories, just weird stuff, fun stuff, science, history, crime, true crime, weird news, celebrity, whatever. You never know what you're gonna get. It's a ball, it's just so much fun. I would love to see this get out to a larger group. Unfortunately, the main platform I have is still thethinkingatheist.com. And that's the challenge. I could post it elsewhere under another moniker, but it probably will get buried in the noise. For now, this speech will post in its current form in probably 1st in November. And my hope is there will be some people who, despite seeing the moniker at the bottom, will be compelled by the humanity in the title. They'll be compelled by what the actual theme of the speech is, and they'll click on it anyway. But it's a big if. I've seen some speeches take off with religious and non-religious, and I've seen some not, but it's my hope it will get out there. But this is really my bread and butter. This is all I've got. Go ahead.
Thanks again.
Yeah.
On that same line, I was really curious. It's easy to identify a theocrat in that way, that they advertise their beliefs in politics. I'm curious about the kind of maybe like ocean of people who perhaps believe in God and maybe even vote accordingly, but aren't necessarily religious. And kind of on the back of that last questioner, do you find that there maybe is a platform or something that's happening in society where we're able to kind of engage a more well-rounded discussion versus it being an us and them tribalistic approach to things? Do you, aside from politics kind of being like our human invention of how do we decide what's right and wrong or whatever in a way, or advertising that, do you see if there is, like, this is your profession for a long time now, being a public speaker, do you see an avenue out there for a broader discussion that's not as polarizing?
So your question essentially is, how do we fix the world? Okay, well, someone who believes in God in the most casual sense, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual, or even a Christian who doesn't care about the Bible and doesn't want to judge people, I don't spend any time, like, fine. Right now, my fight has been with the theocrat. I'm interested in the people who are at war with the female body, with our LGBT allies, with the Supreme Court, with the Constitution, with humanity. That's, those are the people. I'm going hard at those people. Everybody else, if they want to believe in God in a private, casual sense, I don't spend any real time. Is there a forum, do I think, where we could all get together and sort of share on enjoy our shared humanity? Right now, my platform is really all I've got. I try to set that tone. I don't know if you guys noticed in the shows, but I really do try to focus on kindness and storytelling. I have my moments of snark and rant and justifiable anger and maybe even unjustifiable, but overall, I'm kind of I've been called the Mr. Rogers of atheism. I don't know what to do with that, but I'm trying to lead by example in my own community. Could we find or develop a place where we could all get together? what would you call that? How would it look? How would you manage it? Who would cultivate it? It's beyond me, my friend, but I think it's a worthy goal. I don't know what that looks like. Okay, real fast. I know you've been sitting for 90 minutes. I want to make this quick and painless. 2 quick things. First, let me give you an example of a true story and what the new show is, because I think you'll enjoy this one. I told this one last night. This is the kind of stuff that I've been doing, not just because I love it, but to help keep all my other activist work kind of fresh, because you can only debunk the book of Genesis so many times, and then you want to stick your face in a blender. I'm just saying, all right? John was a radio operator and decoder just after the Second World War. The Cold War is in full flame. Stalin leads Russia, the terrible dictator, murderer Stalin, responsible, some estimate, for the deaths of 20 million of his own countrymen. John was an American serviceman who was supposed to listen to secret Russian radio transmissions and decode the messages for our military. And John one day began to hear a bunch of chatter on the radio. Stalin is in failing health. Joseph Stalin is not doing well. We've called the authorities. We are all congregating. Doctors are at his side. Stalin, Stalin, Stalin. And he's passing these stories, this information up the chain of command, until finally, after hours and hours and hours, John hears the news. Through secret coded Russian channels, Joseph Stalin is dead. And he told his superiors, they told their superiors, it went up the chain until finally it reached the ear of President Eisenhower. And what makes that story the most interesting, it was a secret that the Soviet Union was trying to keep, at least for the moment, because it would shift the balance of world power. They wanted to control information, and yet John had discovered the story and revealed it essentially to the world. And that John would one day grow up even more to meet presidents. He would shake hands with presidents. The same John who would one day be honored in the Rock and Roll and Country Music Hall of Fame. The John who walked the line, who sang the Folsom Prison Blues, who went over that burning ring of fire. Johnny Cash. Isn't that fun? Yeah. There's a saying that truth is stranger than fiction, and I don't know if that's always true, but I think it's often true. Like, the stories that we have to tell are amazing. There are 25 of them out, and they release 3 times a week. And I've already got them queued through February. I've got 90 of them ready to rock and roll. True Stories Podcast, or you can just Google or app search on your podcast, True Stories with Seth Andrews. All right, here's the story I want to finish with, and then you can stand up. Allow me to hold you hostage for 3 more minutes, okay? Yes, ma'am.
The first time I ever saw that symbol, it was connected with the black bloc.
What's the black bloc?
Antifa?
This symbol was connected with Antifa?
Yeah, we've had a lot of civil unrest here in the Twin Cities, and we've had a lot of bad things that were going on in the streets a couple years ago. And after those protests, when everything was settling down and the news reporters were getting in there, that was the symbol that I saw drawn on different areas. And I'm wondering how Antifa and the Black Bloc consider themselves connected to the atheists.
I haven't seen that symbol. The Atheist A is actually a symbol that was created years and years and years and years ago to help sort of mark atheist communities.
What they leave behind.
Yeah, well, we're not Antifa. It also looks like the Star Trek emblem. I mean, there may be an A, there may be a similarity, but there's no crossover between us and them. There's an A somewhere, but I haven't seen that. I would be curious to see it. But as far as this, it's been around for freaking 13 years and it's trademarked, and if they're using this, I need a phone call tonight, okay? Someone's using this, I want a phone call tonight, because I'm gonna make some calls myself legally. All right. I have been in Tulsa, Oklahoma my whole life, and I have a cost-benefit discussion every time somebody asks me what I do for a living. Or where do you go to church? You ever go through that? Like, you have to ask yourself, do I really want to get into this right now? Is this why I'm here? Do I want to put myself through it? And I found myself doing a lot. I mean, I'm an activist, but even I have my downtime. I'm on a plane. What do you do? Where are you going? Do I say the American Atheist National Convention to be the keynote? Or do I say, I'm going to go see some friends, which is accurate, but it also gets me off the hook. I found myself doing some of that. So anyway, and forgive me if you've heard this story because I told it on the radio. So this is a few years back. My family calls and they say, hey, your cousin Sue is coming down from, she lives in Chicago. Haven't seen her for 15 years. She's coming into town. It's a rare thing, and we'd like whoever wants to come, let's all come over and we're going to all catch up. And I'm like, well, okay, I haven't seen Sue in a decade and a half. Great. So we all go over to my sister's house, hugely religious family. My mother and father are just traumatized by their atheist son, right? They are theocrats. They are hardcore. They believe they failed. I failed. I'm going to hell. It's an embarrassment to the family. It's terrible. It's cost us most of our relationship. My father passed away last year. That's the temperature. We're all at the table. My parents are here, my siblings, whatnot. And then there's Sue and her husband, Mark, okay? Sue's catching up. So she starts over here. So what do you do for a living? Well, I do this, and I work for a financial company, and I'm the deacon at my church. Oh, well, that's very interesting. So they talk, and what do you do? What do you do, sir? You know, she's catching up, and I realize she's coming around to me. Shit. And my heart just sank, not here, not tonight. That's not why I came. So she comes around to me, and she says, now, what do you do, Seth? And I can feel all eyes upon me. And I said, I host an online podcast. I'm a podcaster. I'm a radio online podcaster. And then I handed it off to and she's actually, have you talked? I mean, I literally found a way to segue right out of it. But I could tell she was not satisfied with my answer. So after she finished here, she came back to me. She goes, well, I mean, you're a podcaster. Well, that's it. I know you used to do radio. What's your show about? The show deals with religious issues relating to religion and politics and, right? I just stopped there. It was so awkward. And so someone else starts talking about something. And finally, I knew she was going to come back to me. I knew it. But all of a sudden, I had this moment, and I thought, what are you doing? Everybody at this table gets to be their authentic self. Like, they're not apologizing for being a church deacon or having their kids on a mission trip or having their Last Supper painting or whatever up. And they're not apologizing for their value system or their political, they're not sitting on their hands. Why? What am I doing? Why am I the only one? I'm not keeping peace. This is not peace. It's an absence of conflict, which is different. And I'm the one having to do all the bending to make sure nobody blows up. Their discomfort is not my problem. If they get uncomfortable, that's their problem. What am I doing? Why am I hedging? So she came back to me and she said, now tell me again about this show, this podcast you do on religious issues. And I looked her dead in the eye and I said, I host the most popular atheist podcast in the world. And I waited. Nobody blew up. My parents froze, but they didn't flip out. They didn't flip out. And the evening went on pleasantly. Now here's the point, and here's what I want you to take with you. They went back to Chicago and I got an email. It was Sue. She said, my husband Mark is coming out of the Catholic Church, but he's really dissatisfied. And you know, he's kind of on a journey and he's got a lot of questions. And I bought your book and I've been reading it and I'm like, whoa, I find this really, would you mind if I connected you and Mark so you could have some conversations? Yes, connect me and Mark immediately, yes. If I hadn't spoken up, I would have never known that Mark was probably deconstructing his Catholic faith. He would have never known that he had an advocate and ally with me, somebody he could share his journey with, and the conversations, which were amazing, the conversations that we had would have never happened had I sat on my hands and tried to have an absence of conflict instead of genuine peace. And that's my encouragement to you. The days are too short. This existence is too finite not to live an authentic life. I know many of you have to play chess, not checkers, with family and friends. I know it's a cost benefit. Not all of you can be out in the way you want to be out. But my desire for you from my heart and in my bones is that you give yourself the moment-by-moment gift of an authentic life. No one else can be you. No one else gets to determine your values, what you are, who you are, what you want, who you love. No one else has permission to do that. Give yourself the gift of an authentic life. And those are the final words I've got today. And it's an honor. Thank you all so much. You got him? You doing the final announcement? Oh, okay, all right.
Head on out to the lobby for our social hour. See you out there.
I live in Tulsa.
Forgive me, let me grab this.